And today we're looking at listening for specific information, keywords, gist, and overall meaning. So I hope you guys made your study schedule, because that you need to be studying for the next few weeks if you want to pass the exam. Hi Mohammadi. So I hope you really made your study schedule and you will start following it today. Anyway, let's go to today's lesson. Okay, so how to listen for keywords. So keywords are the important words in the question that are going to lead you to the answer, like important words that you should not miss out. So how do you listen for keywords? One, you need to familiarize yourself with the question types. So we already know now which question types appear in the exam. So we have one, multiple choice questions, and those questions require you to choose the correct answer from a list of options. So in those types of questions, listen for specific details that match one of the options, and then eliminate the options that are clearly wrong. So it's not always clear which option is wrong, but if you can't if you're listening for the keywords and you're listening for specific details that match those options, you're going to get that answer. And if you can't find evidence for a question if you can't find evidence for a choice that you have made in that multiple choice question, then look for another option that might have the answer that you're looking for. But this is listening, so you need to also follow the audio. So don't waste time doing that, but make sure that you are really keen on listening for the specific details that match one of the options that you have been given in multiple choice questions, while eliminating the options that are clearly wrong. Then there are the gap fill questions, the questions that require you to fill in missing words in a sentence or a phrase. So for those kinds of questions, listen for the missing words and pay attention to the context to ensure that you choose the correct form of the word. Then obviously you can try and go look at those questions on the OET website, where we have sample papers there. Then the other thing that you need to do is to read the questions first. So before listening to the audio material, read the questions carefully, because you're given time to do that. So this will give you an idea of what to listen for, and it will help you identify the keywords. So that time when you're given to listen, you're told, now read the questions. That time you should be using it to read the questions carefully. It will give you an idea of what you're actually supposed to be listening for, and it will help you identify the key words. So for example, if the question asks you to identify a specific person, listen for their name and any other relevant details. So that is a very simple question. Usually they're not that simple, but that gives you an idea of what you should be listening for. Then look for clue words. So what are clue words? Clue words are words that signal the answer to a question. For example, if the question asks for a specific location, then listen for words such as here, there, near, or far, or such words. Even if they don't mention the location, they might say here and they're talking about a certain place. So you know that that is a clue word for us, a location. Then pay attention to any other specific details that are mentioned. Then another thing you need to do is pay attention to numbers and dates when listening for keywords as well. So numbers and dates are often important in the audio. So you need to listen to make sure that you note them down accurately if they're required, because the question can have that one simple trick inside the numbers. So if they mention numbers, make sure that you pay attention to them. So pay attention to any units of measurement, or any specific dates that are mentioned. Then listen for repetition. So sometimes keywords are repeated. So obviously you should be listening to the whole audio very carefully, but in a place where keywords are repeated, then that will obviously be an important place to really be very keen on. So listen for words or phrases that are repeated because they are likely to be important. So pay attention to any words or phrases that are emphasized or repeated for emphasis. So the other thing is be aware of synonyms. So what are synonyms? So sometimes keywords are not used exactly as they appear in the questions. So be aware of any synonyms or alternative words that may be used instead. So before we go on, do you know what, if you know what a synonym is, you can put it in the chat box. So do you know what a synonym is? We mentioned it last week. Yes, similar words. Gina has told us similar words. So words that have similar meanings. So pay attention to any words or phrases that have similar meanings or that are used in the same context. This is a it's the main thing about the OET reading and listening. They use a lot of synonyms and a lot of paraphrasing. So they will use one word in the question and another word meaning the same thing in the audio. But if you don't know that they're synonyms, you're going to miss it. So really pay attention to synonyms and also paraphrasing, where they use a different set of words to say the same thing. So for example, something might be used to describe the speaker's profession, such as job, career, or and such words. So any of those words could be synonyms for each other. Job, career, profession, they're all synonyms for each other. So or just saying, I work here, they're talking about their job. So you need to listen carefully for such things. Then the other thing is that you need to look for contextual clues. So sometimes the keywords are not obvious on their own. So in that case, look for contextual clues. So everything that surrounds that paragraph. So contextual clues such as the tone of the person speaking or the topic of the conversation. That will help you identify important information. So pay attention to any other details that are mentioned that may in the audio that may provide additional context. So for example, if you're asked, what is the speaker's opinion about the new policy? So there might not be a keyword that talks about their opinion, but you can listen for their tone. Like maybe if they say it in a way that sounds like they hate the new policy, the tone can tell you that how they say what they're saying about the new policy. So listen for any tone or language that might help you and get the answer. So yes, I can see your answers. Some of them are arriving right now, and I see everybody knows what a synonym is. Heinz Park, Mojgan, Lamia, Alexia, Mary, you're all correct. Okay, so that is how listening for keywords, a very crucial skill in the OET listening test. Then what about implied meaning? So in the OET listening test, you might be required to listen for implied meaning, which means that you need to understand the intended meaning of the speaker beyond the literal or explicit words used. So we said that implied meaning here in the box here, we said implied meaning refers to the meaning that is indirectly or subtly suggested rather than directly stated. So they might say certain words, but they're actually trying to say something else. So implied meaning is the opposite of explicit meaning. So explicit meaning is what someone says or writes directly without any hidden or secret meanings. So it's the most basic and clear message that someone is trying to convey. For example, if someone says, I am hungry, the explicit meaning is that they are feeling hungry and they want to eat something. So you don't have to guess or to interpret what they mean because they said it very clearly. It's like someone telling you exactly what they mean without any extra clues or hints. But implied meaning is when someone says one thing, but they actually mean something else. So it's like a hidden message that you have to figure out by paying attention to the context, to the tone, and to nonverbal cues. So for example, if someone says, I'm fine, if they say that in a sad tone of voice, they might actually be feeling upset, but they're not saying it directly. So to understand implied meaning, you have to pay attention to the way they're saying it in the situation that they are in. So you have to, it's like a hidden meaning where you have to solve to understand what someone really means. So there will be a lot of listening for implied meaning, especially in part B and C. So practice listening for implied meaning. So they've said one thing, but they're actually saying something else. And usually you'll find that the questions will also force you to listen for implied meaning. So practice doing that. So how do you do that? So how do you listen for implied meaning? So to do that effectively, you should focus on one, the context. What is the context? So the context is the words and the circumstances and the background information that are surrounding the speaker's words. So everything surrounding, the context is everything surrounding what they are saying. That is the context. That is one way of listening for implied meaning. Then focus also on the tone, which is how the speaker sounds when they are speaking. So do they sound happy or sad and so on? That is the tone. Then you also need to focus on the intonation. So what is the intonation? Intonation is the way a person's voice goes up and down when we speak. So basically the rise and fall of the pitch in their voice. So the way the voice goes up and down when we speak, that is intonation. So it's important because it can change the meaning of the word, and it can also help to convey the speaker's emotions or their intentions. So for example, in this sentence, I didn't say he stole the money. So if the speaker emphasizes the word I, it could mean that someone else said it. So for example, if I say, I did not say he stole the money, that means someone else said it, but not the person speaking. If the speaker emphasizes the word he, it could mean that someone else, like for example, I did not say that he stole the money. That could mean that someone else stole the money, but not the person that is being discussed. Then if the speaker emphasizes the word say, so for example, I did not say that he stole the money, it could mean that they did something else, but they didn't say it, maybe they wrote it. So that is how intonation works. If I change the word even stole, just by intonation, I did not say that he stole the money. You can see I'm saying that maybe he didn't steal it, maybe he just found it or somebody gave it to him. So you can see how much intonation changes the different meanings when the sentence is the same. So different meanings can be conveyed through changes in intonation. And intonation can also convey emotions such as attitudes. That's a common question in OET. What is the attitude of the speaker towards such and such? So it can convey emotions or attitudes like sarcasm, excitement, or anger, and such things. So an excited tone might have a higher pitch and a faster speaking rate, and an angry tone might be a lower pitch and slower speaking rate. So you know how to listen to tone, intonation, and tone. So also make sure that you pay attention to any implied emotions, attitudes, or assumptions that the speaker may have. So they might say it, but the emotions, I feel so sad about. So if they if they talk about emotions even in a passing way, make sure that you listen to that, or anything that they may assume. So that is how to listen to implied meanings. So let's see if we can understand implied meaning from these examples. So example 1, I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to give you any painkillers right now. Then that is what the nurse says. And then the patient says, okay, I guess I'll just stuff it out. So what would you say is the implied meaning of what the patient is saying? Just by looking at how it has been said. They said, okay, I guess I'll just stuff it out. What do you think? What do you think the patient is really saying? Anyone want to hazard a guess? Varna says the patient might be angry. Yes. Any other idea? Yes, they're disappointed. Mariam is saying they're disappointed. So even if they're saying, okay, I guess I'll just tough it out. Alexia is saying that he will bear the pain for now. I just have to bear it. So bearing the pain is more of explicit meaning. Toughing it out, it's explicit meaning. But that is the synonym of bearing it. So I have to bear it. So that is the explicit meaning, that he will tough it out. But what is the implied meaning? He is not happy about that he is not going to be given painkillers. So he's unsatisfied, yes. He will bear the pain. That is a synonym to toughing it out. So I agree with that. He's kind of agreeing because he has no option, but he is not happy. So he's joyless. Yeah. So when he says that, he's not happy about what is going on. What about the second one? So before we go to the second one, so that means that the patient is really in a lot of pain and is just accepting the situation because they have no choice. So if you are listening to that, you would listen to their tone and the context of that conversation so that you can understand their true feelings and the severity of their pain. So in the second example, the doctor says it's possible that this medication could cause some side effects. Then the patient says, that's fine as long as it helps me feel better. So what is the implied meaning here? What is the explicit meaning here? I think you already know what that is, but what is the implied meaning of what the patient says? In this second example with the doctor. Yes, exactly. Mariam has said it is better than nothing. So he must be in a lot of pain. That is the implied meaning, that he must be in so much pain that he doesn't care about the side effects. As long as he feels better, he doesn't care whether it will bring any side effects. That means that he really must be the implied meaning is that he really must be in a lot of pain right now. So for you to say, for you to be told by the doctor that a medication has side effects, but you're like, it's fine, you without even asking what the side effects are, that implies that the patient must be in a lot of pain. So he has agreed to take it despite the side effects. So that is what implied meaning is, and it is really something that you really have to listen for in the OET listening test. Even in the reading test, you shall use the same tips that we're talking about listening right now. So that's implied meaning. Now, next we have gist, another necessary skill that you need, listening for gist. So listening for gist, what is gist? Gist is the main idea of what you're listening for. So once they say a whole paragraph, what exactly is the main idea that is being conveyed in everything that they said? That is what gist is, the main idea. And sometimes you'll see that you can't directly find the answer from both reading and listening. You can't directly find the answer, but they're mainly talking about one thing, and that one thing is the main idea that you're being asked to listen for. So how do you listen for gist? So one, thoroughly read all the questions before listening. So remember that you're given that time aspect to read those questions. Listening for gist is mainly in part B and C. So thoroughly read the questions, all the questions before listening. So understanding the speaker, that means when you're reading the questions, make sure that you understand the speaker, meaning who is talking, the intended audience, meaning who they are speaking to or who is supposed to be listening. That's the intended audience. And then the number of people that are involved. It can be one person, or it can be an interview, or it can be a presentation to a group. And then the purpose of the interaction. So why is the interaction happening? So listening for all that, understanding the speaker, the intended audience, the number of people that are involved, and the purpose, meaning the why, all that can prepare you for the listening, so that you are ready to focus on the relevant information that you need. Then you also need to identify the type of listening skill that you needed. So like we have said, listening part B tests for gist and detail. So you need to learn to listen for that. Then be prepared to listen for the message. Like we said, the gist is the main idea. So multiple choice options may not use the exact words that are spoken in the recording. So listen carefully for the message of the recording rather than the specific words. That is almost every question. So they usually don't use the exact words that were spoken in the recording. So listen for the message of the recording rather than the specific words. The other thing is avoid getting distracted by distractors. So what are distractors? Distractors are the incorrect options of multiple choice questions that aim to mislead you from finding the correct answer. So sometimes they're usually a very small trick, and that is just an incorrect option to mislead you from finding the correct answer, to test if you're actually paying attention. So just stay focused on the message of the recording and avoid falling for distractors. So listen for gist, the main message. Then use the interview questions as a guide. So OET listening part C has those two extracts, and they will either be in the form of a presentation with only one speaker, or they will be in the form of an interview with two speakers, like we looked at last week. So if it's an interview, that is very helpful. That one is easy to follow, because each time the interviewer asks a question, it means that you need to focus on the new question. So every time the interviewer starts to speak, it means that they've gone to a different question on the question paper. So interviews are a bit easier to follow. And sometimes the interviewer's questions and the questions on the question paper strongly match. So you have a very useful guide there as to when you should be moving on to the next question. So that is important because it will help you navigate the recording and avoid missing the answers. So for interviews, just remember whenever the interviewer talks, that's a different question. But there is in presentation. So for presentations, you need to listen for signposting language. So if you're listening to a presentation rather than an interview, then you will need to listen for signposting language as your guide. So signposting language is language that indicates the beginning of a new idea or the end of an old idea, and it helps to organize longer stretches of speech. So using sequencing verbs like fast, sequencing means arranging in order. So using words like fast, second, when they say second, you know that they've moved to the next paragraph. So if they use words like fast, second, or etc will show you that they've ended an idea. Or by using other words like now I'll go to, you know, they've gone to the next paragraph. Or they say so, this is what we, so the word so is signposting language as well. That helps indicate a change of topic or that they're developing a new idea. So you have to practice this listening for learning whether they moved on to the next question in listening part C requires you to actually practice that in presentations. So make sure you're using the sample tests. So you can also listen to interviews and presentations online just to learn how people go to the next topic. So listening for them, for that will help you prepare for what you will encounter. You'll be able to listen for gist in what people are talking about. So listening to podcasts are really good because in the OET exam, it's the same thing. You're just going to be listening to audios. So you can listen to podcasts on BBC. There are also extended monologues. Monologues are those presentations on BBC as well, which is free online. Then you get to listen to many different accents and examples of signposting language. So try to listen regularly to those kinds of things, sometimes passively, but sometimes actively. So if you're listening actively, then you can listen, then write a short summary based on what you have heard and what you have learned. So when you do that, you really build your exposure to English, and it prepares you for what you face, especially in part C. So interviews, gist is mostly important for part B and C. So listening for interviews and listening to interviews and presentations will really help you understand gist. You can even listen to TED Talks. Those ones have visuals, but you can play it while you're doing something else. Just practicing that listening is going to help you listen for gist, listen for the main idea. All right, so that was listening for keywords, for implied meaning and gist. So all those are very, very important in the OET listening test. So some general tips. In part B, remember that in part B, you listen to 6 recorded extracts like we looked at last week. So 6 recorded extracts from the healthcare workplace, and you answer 1 multiple choice question for each extract. And that part of the test is usually around 10 minutes. So in part B, the first thing is to make sure that you read the contextual information for each extract to ensure that you understand the interaction that you will hear. So before you hear each audio, there is a context statement which gives you the background to the situation. So for instance, you can be told, you hear a nurse briefing her colleague about her patient. That is the context, the contextual information. So you hear a nurse briefing her colleague about a patient. You will also hear that on the audio, and then you'll have 15 seconds to prepare by reading the question and the answer options. So then read through each question carefully. That sounds obvious, but this is always a problem for people. So read the question carefully because you need to know what to focus on. So for example, the question might be, what is the plan for the patient today? So in the audio, I don't know if you listen to that question. So in the audio, the speakers might discuss what happened to the patient yesterday and what will happen tomorrow or next week. And they use such small tricks a lot to throw you off. But your job is to focus on today, because remember the question was, what is the plan for the patient today? So they'll most likely mention tomorrow morning I'll be doing, and they mention it so fast, but for you, you just listened to what is the plan for the patient. And then they said something and about today, yesterday, tomorrow, and you cannot rewind. So you have no idea whether they were talking about tomorrow or yesterday. That's why it is important to listen, to read through each question carefully so that you know what to listen for. Because if they said today, then you make sure that your mind is focused on what they talk about doing for that patient today and not tomorrow. So they use such small tricks a lot. So make sure that you read the question through each question carefully. Then this one, mark your answers on the question paper by filling in the circle using a 2B pencil, so not crossing or anything. Fill in with that pencil. So we talked about this, making sure that you have those pencils before the exam date. Then let's go to the don'ts. So don't select your answer until you have had the whole extract. So sometimes you think you've had an answer because they've mentioned a word that was in the question, but then you realize that the answer was at the end. So if you had already selected your answer without hearing the whole extract, sometimes that happens even in class where we're listening to something and then somebody believes they've had the answer, and then when the extract is over, you realize that you got it wrong because they said something that sounded like it could be the answer at the beginning until you listen to the whole extract and you realize that the answer was at the end when we listen again. So this is for part B, not part C. Part B is where you listen to the whole extract. So until you have had the whole extract, don't select your answer. Then do not fill in more than one circle on the question paper, as the scanner will not be able to recognize your answer and you will not receive any marks for that question. So don't fill in more than one circle. That will not go well for you. FSH is asking, can I use a pencil for the whole exam? Yes. So OET actually tells you to go with two pencils that are 2B. So two 2B pencils and 2 pens so that you can have a spare. If you go with one, it's not like they'll chase you away, but this is all for your own benefit. So can I use a pencil the whole exam? I actually recommend just using a pencil. So for me, I think it's easier so that if you feel like you want to erase, so you don't have to erase, you can just cancel out. But then for example, part B, if you want to change your answer, first of all, part B, you have to use a pencil. So for the person asking, can I use pencil the whole exam? I recommend that you only use a pencil. I don't recommend using a pen at all. You can carry them, but I don't recommend using it. Because with your pencil, you just feel more confident to correct if you need to do that. Okay, so listening part C. Remember that in part C, you listen to 2 recordings of a presentation or an interview. So it can be a presentation and an interview, or 2 presentations or 2 interviews. And they are both on a health-related issue. So you will answer 6 multiple choice questions for each recording while you listen. And that part of the test usually lasts around 15 minutes. So as always, and just like we have mentioned for part B, read through each question carefully. Then make sure that you mark your answers using a 2B pencil. Then don't, in part C, don't wait for keywords in the question or answer options to be said in the recording. So you've seen a keyword in the question and you're like, hey, this keyword is the one that I will listen for. So don't do that. Don't wait for the keywords, because the speakers will usually use synonyms of the words that you have read. So we've looked at what synonyms are, and that is what they will usually use. So make sure that you listen, you don't wait for the keywords, but listen for paraphrasing and listen for synonyms of what you have read, because it is almost never said in the same way. Then the other thing, obviously, is do not fill in more than one circle, just like we have talked about. Part B and C of both listening and reading are marked by a computer, but part A is marked by a person, so you have to make sure that your writing is legible. Caroline, you're saying you're having network problems on your side. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's go to some general tips. So general tips during the exam. One, you need to make sure that you have a spare pen or pencil ready just in case. They always tell you in the instructions that they send you on email, once you register for the test, they will tell you to come with two pens and 2 pencils. So I don't think you're going to forget that. And they also tell you to come with a transparent Ziploc bag to put those things in. So don't come with an opaque bag that they cannot see through. If you do that, you're going to leave it outside and just get in with your pen and pencil. You'll have to hold them yourself. But having a spare helps you in case something goes wrong with the first one. Then for listening, you also have to stay relaxed. You have to be relaxed and receptive. So make sure the day before you get enough sleep. This is one big mistake that people make. Get enough sleep so that on the day of listening is the first test, so that you are ready and able to listen to what they are saying. You really need a high level of concentration during the listening test. So make sure you're relaxed, you slept well, and you're ready to listen because you have already practiced. So just take a deep breath. This is something that people panic about during the exam. So if you have practiced, if you have been studying, there is no reason to panic. And if you find yourself panicking on the exam day, as you wait, make sure you take deep breaths. If you panic during the exam, take like 5 deep breaths. It will calm you down. So it will help you be receptive, and it will help you to be ready to listen. Miani is asking, are you allowed to use or are you given earphones when listening to the audio? So you are going to be, it depends on the exam rule. So sometimes some exam centers have big speakers for everybody to listen to. So the test is played on speakers. But for some other exam centers, they give everybody earphones. So headphones actually. So that is what happens. Either big speakers playing in the exam room or everybody is given their own individual headphones. So that one completely depends on your exam center. Then the other thing is focus on listening and understanding. So listening and understanding, and then recording your answer. In the OET, you really have to understand what they're saying, not just hearing. Otherwise, you're going to pick a distractor instead of the correct answer. Then demonstrate that you have understood the recording as well as heard it. So understanding just what we have talked about, you have to understand the recording, not just hear it. Take a sample test. So you have those sample tests in the OET site, but you're told take them under test conditions. Under test conditions means, like we said last week, testing yourself under the exact conditions that you would be in the exam room, meaning download those tests, circle the answers like with a to-be pencil, time yourself in that exact time. Do not pause between part A and B and C, only the pauses that are in the audio. So practice under test conditions. Some people have already done that. If you haven't, please do as you continue studying. Then don't be distracted by what is going on around you. This is going to be suicidal if you do that in terms of passing the test. So just ignore people, like because listening, once you something passes you, it's over. So don't be distracted, just focus on what you're doing. Then when the recording starts, use the time that is allowed to look through the questions carefully, scanning the headings and questions so you know what to listen out for. We talked about that. So look through the questions carefully. That helps you know what you're supposed to be listening for. Like if they say today, then you know you're going to be listening for what happened today. Then use common abbreviations and symbols. So if it's those are very common ones like HIV and such and BP. So those are very common ones. If they are not very common, don't assume that they will know what you mean. So just don't use them, but only if they're very common. Then write clearly. Don't make it difficult for the assessor to read your responses, as you may not get all the marks you could. So that means for part A, that is especially for part A. Can you imagine failing because of your handwriting? That would be absolutely tragic if you knew the answer and got it wrong because the assessor could not read what you wrote. So make sure that you write clearly. I'm sure you've nowadays in the age of typing, some people have forgotten how to write. Don't make that mistake. But you're in the because you're doctors and you're nurses and you are radiographers, I'm sure you people have a doctor's handwriting. Don't use that handwriting in that exam. It will not help you. Just try to write clearly. Then don't lose your pace during the test. Remain focused on each question. So make sure that you follow the test as it's going along. Okay, so at the end, checking at the end, this is the listening test. So you don't have the option of going back to rehear what you said. So you have to, unless you are sure that you accidentally chose the wrong option, like maybe you shaded B and you wanted to shade C, then unless you are sure of that, not trying to remember, wait, what did that audio say? Because they're not going to play it. So you have to guess. It's not like reading where you can go back to the paragraph and see what they actually wrote there. In listening, you will have to guess. So just think twice about that. Unless you're for sure, you know for sure that you had chosen the correct answer, the wrong answer when you maybe you went to pick C, but you picked D. So it might be better to just leave what you wrote the first time if you're not sure. Unless you're sure, you can change because you're given 2 minutes at the end. So it's not like you even have a lot of time to keep changing things. So if you're not sure, just leave it alone. But at the same time, don't leave any blank spaces. So you might not have had the correct answer to something and you had to move on when the audio was playing. So if you did not hear the correct answer and you still have those blank spaces, just go ahead and guess. So guess something, just don't leave it like that. It's better, you might actually guess the correct answer, but make sure that every space in your paper is filled. It might be the correct one. So just guess if you did not hear. If at the end of the 2 minutes, if at the end of the test that you have blank spaces, then developing your listening skills. So you need to develop your skills before you get to that exam room where you're given a whole test of 45 minutes only. and it has part A, B, and C. So you need to go and listen to a lot of things so that you can just be used to that by the time you get to the exam room. So one, you should practice listening to English delivered at a natural speed in a variety of voices and contexts, because that is what happens during the exam room. During the exam, it's English that is delivered at a natural speed, because they're trying to see if you would understand it in a healthcare context when you're doing your job. So that is how people will be speaking. So we're told that learners who do this regularly are more confident at extracting key information in gist, even when they are not able to decode every word or phrase. So we've just looking at key information in gist. So you become more confident if you've been listening. So you're exposed to many accents, you're exposed to many types of voices, many types of context. So you're just used to listening to English. So make sure you're exposed to speakers of different ages and backgrounds and to the language of different contexts. For example, informal discussions and formal lectures and so on. Then we're told, although this is really important, and I've said it, I think, many times. So although it is useful to practice exam techniques by using exam materials and course books, you should also use real life sources to develop your listening skills. So you can find a variety of authentic sources for free on the internet, particularly in the form of training videos and professional development talks. So don't just use the OET sample papers. Some people want to do sample papers every single day, and it's not going to be helpful. You can do sample papers. Yes, you should do them, but don't just use that. Make sure you use real life sources. Then another way to develop your listening skills, practice with listening texts in a variety of ways. For example, you can listen to a text once for the gist and then produce a summary of the main ideas or the attitudes. We've discussed how to listen for attitude expressed by the speakers. Then you can listen to the same text a second time in order to retrieve specific information or to focus on useful language. So practice with doing that. You can practice with the podcasts on BBC and such. So practice listening for gist, then try produce a summary of the main ideas. It will just help you develop your skills. Then at a high level in OET listening, it is not enough to be able to pick out particular words or specific details. So you're not being tested at a B2 or B1 level. You are being tested at a C1 level, which is a high level of listening. So it's not enough for you to just see a word and hear that you picked out the word house, for example. So you need to be able to understand the overall meaning of what the speakers are saying. That's what we just said, listening for gist. And it's important to practice following a speaker's line of argument and identifying his or her opinion or attitude. So that is why you need to practice listening a lot so that you are able to understand overall meaning. So here are some of the resources that we recommend for practicing. Now that you said you need to practice listening for all that. So these are some resources that you can use. So we have the official OET practice materials, which are on the website. So they have the sample test, they have the answer keys. So the point of those materials is to familiarize you with the format and the style of the listening section. Their official YouTube site, the official YouTube channel is also very, very good. It has tons of great lessons that are going to help you. So it has many lessons, very useful, and they're from people that we refer to as premium preparation providers. meaning that they have been approved by the official OET people to teach OET. And they are called all-star providers. That means they don't use all available providers, premium providers. There are some specific ones that are used by the official OET YouTube channel. So they are really good, like Kyra and SLC, which is specialist language courses, and others that are there. Another good one, I don't think you need, but if you somehow exhaust everything that is on the official OET YouTube channel, then others that are good are E2, that is on YouTube. E2 is also good. Swoosh English is good. So swoosh as in SWOOSH. Sometimes you want to listen to a different thing. So Swoosh English is good. E2 is good. Benchmark OET is also good. And SLC, which is specialist language courses, those are also good training channels. Podcasts, you need to listen to podcasts in English because they will help you practice listening. So I would recommend TED.com or the official YouTube channel and BBC. So listening to a variety of English audios like podcasts, news, broadcasts, lectures, all that can help you improve your overall listening skills. And when you're listening, focus on understanding different accents, identifying key information, and you can also practice note-taking. You can also use English learning platforms. So platforms like BBC Learning English. So that is, it's called Learning English on BBC. Learning English, so bbc.co.uk/learning English. That one has good listening resources. You can also try English Club. So they provide you with different listening resources like videos, exercises, and listening quizzes. So it will just help you practice that. Then the SLC. Somebody has asked a question about Reach OETB, which Angelique has answered. So the person had asked, is Reach OETB Nursing, is there a free package? There is no free package, but all the other channels, like the official OET YouTube channel, is absolutely free. But the SLC, I think I want to talk about this a little. It has a course called Reach OETB. There is nursing, there is for doctors, whichever course you want, they have it. So that course, you can pay for it. So just in case you want to invest a little bit more in your OET, you don't have to do this because we already have the free. So if you have a little bit of extra money, you can invest in that course. It's called Reach OETB from SLC. So remember that you're trying to give yourself the best possible chance of passing the OET. So if you're able to, I mentioned the free ones first for a reason. So the free ones are already adequate. But if you're able to, and if you feel like you need some extra help, then I would recommend that you invest in this course. They have various plans, but even their basic one is good enough, and it goes for £79 with 3 months of access. So you can pay in 3 batches. So that is about £27 per month. And what you get is 60 hours of preparation, where you focus on every skill required one at a time, and you learn essential strategies and techniques that you should use for the exam. The other one is, what's also offered is 2 full OET nursing practice tests, or for doctors, it's the same, medicine, OET medicine, all that. So for this, they give you 2 practice tests. So those are scored by the computer, and in writing, you compare your answer with a model answer. So this is not just for listening. And in speaking, you record your answers and you can play it back. Then you can download your writing and speaking answers. So they also give you 4 live lessons per week for 12 weeks. So 4 lessons with a teacher. And this covers all aspects of training of OET, from reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So 4 lessons a week over 12 weeks. Then there's a lessons recordings. So if you're not able to attend those live lessons, you'll have access to the recorded lessons from the library. Then we have over 40 videos from Joe. So they have an OET expert who is called Joe, and you can watch more than 40 videos from her with essential tips and techniques on how to pass OET. So if you have already gone to the SLC site on YouTube, you already know who Joe is. She's the one who teaches there. Then there's also multimedia learning that will help you learn more easily. But I have to insist, if you don't have the money, don't worry. As we have already said, first we have this Do It program. But as we have already said, there are so many more free resources on the internet that you can use. And if you practice enough and use them properly, there will be enough. Those podcasts, BBC, the lessons on the official OET channel. So this is just in case you feel that you need an extra boost as you do your self-study. So that is it. Angelique has posted those links in the chat box. So in case you want to check them out, please go check them. So the official OET YouTube channel, SLC with Joe, and all of that. Any question, guys? All right, if there are no questions, we shall end there, and you're most welcome, guys. Keep practicing, and all the best as you study. See you in the evening, and have a good day. Thank you, guys.